Welcome to another episode of the GunBlog VarietyCast with your hosts, Sean Sorrentino and Erin Paulette.
Welcome to episode 119 of the GunBlog VarietyCast, a proud member of the Self-Defense Radio Network. How are you doing, Erin?
Oof, I ate way too much on Thanksgiving, and then on Friday, I had to put Christmas decorations on the roof, and I am wiped out. How are you, Sean?
Well, I'm doing all right. I am, as is traditional for the Thanksgiving episode, recording in URS Studios North, which is my parents' basement.
Get out of your parents' basement, Sean.
Well, normally I'm not in my parents' basement. I'm only up here for Thanksgiving. I'm up here in dreary Erie, the mistake on the lake. Actually, I'm outside of Erie in Girard. Do you know why Erie is so windy?
Lake effect?
No, it's because Buffalo sucks and Cleveland blows. It's not my joke, it's my dad's joke. I actually don't think there's anything wrong with Buffalo or Cleveland. I was in Cleveland, I think it was yesterday. It was actually, for the middle of winter. It's not a bad place. We went to the art museum. We got to see some actually kind of interesting stuff. There's some armor there. And let's see. Oh, there was this dude who was wearing, like in this picture from, I think, like the 1830s or something. He's wearing these funny green glasses or something. They were worried about the effects of these brand new, like, arc lights or gas lights, or I don't know what kind of lights. It was a description of why he was wearing these funky looking green glasses. They were hysterical looking. Actually, you know what? I'm going to send you a picture of these glasses. You've got to see this. This is hilarious. Tell me this does not look like somebody who, if you saw this in a movie, would you believe this?
And this is not rehearsed, folks. He's actually texting it to me while we record this.
Okay, you should have just received this.
Uh-huh.
In the Signal app that we, plugged, what was it, last week? The week before? Something like that?
Yeah. These are like weird Victorian-style Ray-Bans.
But they're green.
They wrap around. That's what I find fascinating.
Right. If I put those in a book or in a movie or something, and I said, oh, yes, these are historically accurate, you'd be like, okay, no, sci-fi. Come on now. This is like something out of Doctor Who or something like that, right?
Yeah, this is something I would expect to see at a steampunk convention. Yeah.
So, armor was pretty neat. Let's see, went to the West Side Market, which is, an indoor market, sort of like, I don't know. They had the outdoor-ish, was it still indoor? I mean, it's Cleveland. They don't do really anything outdoor year-round around here, but they had the farmer's market in the little annex. But the indoor sort of meat market and permanent shops and stuff, it looks like, I don't know, kind of like a train station, maybe like an old powerhouse sort of thing.
Has the Christmas spirit vomited over everything?
No, not in there, no.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah, I don't know if they do that in there. Yeah, we had a good time. Spent, I don't know, a couple of hours. Well, it was 3 hours round trip to Cleveland, and then, I don't know, probably 3 hours there, I think. Wife says 4. Yeah, spent plenty of time. Had a great time.
Another thing we are thankful today is Lucky Gunner and Remington's support of the GunBlog VarietyCast. From turkey loads to range rounds, get a full lineup of quality Remington ammo that ships fast at luckygunner.com.
So let's go on with the show.
Indeed. This week we decided to do something a little bit different by giving our contributors the opportunity to tell us what they're thankful for this holiday season. Beth and the rest of the Alcazar household start us off.
Well, I'm really excited about this week because we have an opportunity to share what we're thankful for. So I am thankful for the craziness and chaos that is the Alcazar household. And in fact, I've got my children around me and my husband, some of the most wonderful things in my life of which I am most thankful for. And hopefully they'll be able to share some of the things that they love and that they are thinking about in this season of thankfulness. Of course, the 14-year-old is upstairs asleep, so I'm going to step in for her and say that she is thankful for a week off of school in which she can catch up on those much-needed Z's. But standing right next to me is my 6, almost 7-year-old son, and he wanted to share what he is most thankful for.
I'm most thankful for my playroom because it has lots of fun toys, and we get to play with them and have fun. And I'm thankful for my mom and dad because they take good care of me.
Very nice. Oh, it's the baby's turn. She is only 3, so it should be quite interesting and entertaining to hear what she is most thankful for. This is Noelle. Noelle, what are you thankful for?
I scared my mommy and daddy and some toys and my puzzles.
Wow, that's excellent. Oh, Ian has more to share. Go ahead.
I'm also thankful for my baby sister because she loves me and I love her too. It's kind of screamy sometimes, but I still kind of like to play with her. And I'm also thankful for my room because I get to sleep and I get to have fun. And I'm thankful for my turn. And I'm thankful for my big sister because she likes to play with me a lot and I really like it.
Okay, well, let Daddy share. Daddy, what are you thankful for?
I'm also thankful for my giraffe.
You know, you always get the corny answers on TV shows and radio programs where everybody's thankful for basically all the same things. You know, your standards, the Lord, their families, veterans. But, you know, I truly am thankful to the Lord and to our veterans and our law enforcement, first and foremost, because they are out there risking their lives to protect our nation and our way of life. I'm also truly thankful to my family and my lovely wife for as hard as she works to support and take care of our family. I'm thankful to the moms who are going to spend hours and hours and hours on food this week, prepping it and cooking it for us who aren't so good at cooking to sit there and eat ourselves into a coma. So for that, I am truly thankful. Once again, God bless the USA. God bless our veterans and our law enforcement and all those families across America.
Of course, beyond my family, which is my heart, I am so thankful for this opportunity, for this podcast, and for the chance to share with all of you out there my struggles, my victories, sometimes my rants and my raves, but ultimately to come together and have an opportunity to celebrate the Second Amendment, to celebrate our right to protect ourselves and our families, and hopefully to be an inspiration out there, especially to the average everyday moms, because that's what I am, a mom with a gun. Ultimately, I am just so thankful for the opportunity each and every day through the USCCA and my job to share with others what it is to be a responsibly armed American. Thank you guys so much for the opportunity to share today with my crazy, chaotic family in the background. Thank you so much to all the responsibly armed out there for all you do, for all you stand for all your support. Now, get out to the range when you get a chance and go practice. Until then, stay safe and be well armed.
You can read more from Beth at usconcealedcarry.com/blog and click on Pacifiers and Peacemakers in the left sidebar.
This podcast runs on your donations. Go to GunBlogVarietyCast.com and click on the donate or subscribe button in the right sidebar. You can make a one-time donation of any amount or subscribe for as little as $2 a month. That doesn't sound like much, but we pay our server costs monthly. A little help from you is a big help to us.
Felons behaving badly. Hoke County man killed in road rage shooting, sheriff says. Dateline, Rayford, North Carolina. A man was shot and killed in a Sunday evening road rage incident in Rayford, officials said. Suspect chased victim of Red Springs in a rage and plowed his vehicle into victims, officials say. Deputies were called to the scene in the 100 block of Gillis Hill Road around 8 p.m., where they found victim, 31, dead from a gunshot wound inside his vehicle. Suspect, 32, of Red Springs, was taken into custody Monday and charged with first-degree murder and shooting into an occupied vehicle. Suspect is being held at Hoke County Detention Center with no bond. The Hoke County Sheriff's Office will continue to investigate the incident. More charges are to be expected, officials said. Authorities asked that anyone with information about the shooting contact Hoke County Sheriff's Office.
Oh my god, road rage, blood in the streets, Mad Max everywhere, weld barbed wire to your cars!
That's what happens when you give concealed handgun permits to just anybody, right?
Sure.
Suspect, robbery with a dangerous weapon, conspiracy, felon class E.
Okay, so there's obviously no license there.
Yeah, I guess not. But then what about the victim? Child abuse, inflicting serious injury, felon class E. And assault on a child, misdemeanor class A1.
Yeah, looking at the victim's rap sheet here, those two child abuse convictions were almost 7 years apart, so it's not like they were for the same incident. Meaning, what, he either abused the same child 7 years apart or he abused 2 different children. Look, this is one of those things where I know murder is wrong, but I can't muster up sympathy for this.
You start to wonder, where do these people find each other, right? How is that possible? Like 2 felons in, like, they're completely different crimes, right? It's not like it was like a drug deal. Like, we're going to have a drug deal. Oh, road rage. Oh, we're going to shoot each other. It's like child abuser meets robbery with a dangerous weapon person in a road rage incident. It's like they just don't have any good control. Maybe that's the issue right there. I don't get it. Like, how do these people find each other? Like, it's like gun people. They just find each other. Like, hey, I have a gun. Oh, I have a gun too. Hey, let's go shooting together. Hey, that's going to be like fun.
Yeah.
Do people who play Dungeons and Dragons find each other the same way on the street? It's like, do we fly a little flag or something?
No, not on the street. We're usually found in sordid game shops and the like, or lurking the dark corners of the internet.
Something.
See, being on a street corner would require us to go outside, and the Daystar burns us.
That's probably true. I don't know. Maybe there's some like secret signal that felons give each other that they don't give us. I mean, wouldn't it be more helpful if that we knew what those signals were so we could see them coming? Like the Alcazars, Barron sits down with his family and talks about what they are thankful for.
Tech tips, tech tips, tech tips.
You are damaging my calm.
Tech tips with the Barron.
Hi, folks. This is Barron. And, well, we're doing things a little bit different this week. This week, I'm joined by my wife and my wonderful son. And Sean asked us to talk about what we're thankful for. And, well, in our household, 2016 has been a miserable year, and there's a lot of stuff that's worth being thankful for, but at the same time, it's worth remembering, how bad it's been. So, for those who don't know, I actually lost my job back in March, and that's actually what provoked an unexpected trip to Disneyland. We made something awesome out of something miserable, and I'm thankful that thanks to me planning ahead and me having reserves and everything else, and the fact that I was able to line a job up immediately, we were able to take an unexpected trip to Disneyland. Fast forward a couple months, and we lose a good friend of mine, Ray Carter. And again, making something good out of something bad, I'm able to go on a road trip that I'd actually been wanting to do for a while, and I met a bunch of gunnies that I wouldn't have other met, including Tamara Keel and Jennifer from In Jennifer's Head, and Farm Fam and the rest of them. And hey, I got an awesome road trip out of it. I got an awesome experience. I was able to see Buffalo Bill Firearms Museum in Cody, Wyoming. I was able to go to Arches National Park as well as Canyonlands National Park. And I was even able to take my wonderful son along with me, who just can't shut up. What are you thankful for, bud? Because, I'm thankful he's here, but by God, he's getting into everything and destroying everything now. My cat's evidently thankful to be let out of the kitchen.
Despite all the bad, I am very thankful to have my little boy, Harry, and my husband, Barron. Harry definitely keeps me on my toes. I'm also grateful I am able to breastfeed him as needed, and thankful for the people out there who are advocates for it. Case in point, today, while eating lunch, Harry needed to be fed, and the gal making my meal told me, flat out, she's like, if anyone says anything about you, let me know. So, thought that was pretty awesome today. And for the most part, I haven't had any issues. I've had funny incidences like in Disneyland with it, but it just brought out a laugh more than anything. I'm also thankful for all the rest of my family who's been very supportive, from my parents to my mother-in-law and grandparents and other extended family.
And are you thankful for anything, Harry? Anything? What, you want to come to me? All right. Don't touch it, bud.
Harry,
Nope.
what are you thankful for?
What are you thankful for, bud? What are you thankful for? Don't touch it. What are you thankful for? He is thankful for the microphone and he wants to play with it. So, with that, everyone have an awesome Thanksgiving, and I will see you again next week.
Barron still blogs at the-minuteman.org.
The main topic segment. Erin, why don't you go first?
All right, well, we're talking about what we're thankful for. So, as much as they drive me crazy, I am thankful for my family. I don't know how much longer they're going to be with me, so I try to enjoy what time I have left with my parents, even when they make it difficult. I'm thankful for my 2 wonderful doggies, Heath and Precious, even though Heath is a needy ADHD bubblehead and Precious is so independent she's practically a cat. I'm also thankful for my blog, because if I hadn't started writing it, I wouldn't be where I am today, the bratty little sister of the gun blogosphere, co-hostess of the GunBlog VarietyCast.
Hey.
And the head of Operation Blazing Sword. Oh, by the way, my blog turns 10 years old next February, which I am both thankful for and amazed by. That is the longest I have ever done anything. And of course, I am thankful for my readers, our listeners, and everyone else in the blog and gun community who has accepted me with open arms and helped me to get to where I am today. You know, I'm even thankful for Sean, because not only did he ask me to be co-host when I figured Weird would be a shoo-in, but also because he very kindly edits the heck out of our segments so that I don't have to. Thanks, Sean.
It's a control issue. I can't let go of control.
That works for me.
Yeah. Actually, I sent you a piece. I said you could edit it. Didn't you see that?
Oh, I did see it. I'll get to that in my copious free time.
Well, I figured I'd let you give it a try. You can practice on it.
Okay.
Well, what I'm thankful for is that I can get into a car and I can drive for 10 or 12 straight hours with almost perfect certainty that the vehicle I get in will make it with no mechanical breakdowns, no tire problems, and no difficulty finding food or gasoline. I love living in the future. I'm thankful that I can set up a computer in the basement of my parents' house, hook up to their Wi-Fi, and record a podcast right here on my Thanksgiving vacation. I'm thankful that I live in North Carolina, and only very rarely do I have to consider the technical differences between sleet, freezing rain, and snow while I walk my dog. I'm sure you can relate to that one, Erin.
What is this mythical substance you were speaking of? You think that water freezes?
You don't want to know, trust me. It's miserable stuff. I'm thankful for my wife of coming up on 10 years this January the 1st. She got us a little cabin getaway coming up. Oh, it's going to be kind of fun. I'm thankful for Adam for more than 90 episodes of co-hosting this podcast, and for Erin for taking over as co-host and for being freaking awesome at it.
Aw, thank you.
I'm thankful for every single contributor on the podcast, past and present, those outside voices who think up and say things that I'd never even consider and who enrich my life every single week. If you listen to it, I've listened to it twice, 3 times, 4 times, just getting it edited, and wow. I would not have come up with any of this stuff, so it's been really interesting learning all these different things. And of course, I am thankful for you, the listener, for tuning in each week. So thanks very much.
Tiffany records her segments a week early, so I'm sorry to break it to you folks. There isn't another segment with her mother this podcast, but she tells a story about why she is thankful for concealed carry.
You never really understand a person until you consider things from his point of view. Till you climb inside of his skin, walk around in it.
Hey guys, I hope you are all having a fabulous week so far, and I have another happy ending story to tell everyone this week. I found another one of these cool stories about a good Samaritan who saves the day using a firearm, and I love these stories because it just kind of validates what I already know, but it just gives me one other thing that I can share with folks who are sort of on the fence about the utility of firearms and whether or not the benefits to well-meaning folks outweigh the potential downsides or the dangers or what have you. So I just love these stories. A good source of finding stories like this is USCCA. Their website, they have their blog category called True Stories, and they often post a lot of cool stories from members who have been involved in CCW events and come out victorious or been successful or had positive outcomes. So I've mentioned on the segment before that I encourage everybody out there, especially if you're on the fence about guns, to every now and then, try and do a little search to see what's not covered so heavily in the news about folks who discreetly carry firearms and how they unexpectedly sometimes come in handy when that's the last thing you want to do is end up needing to use your firearm. So I found another one on the website bearingarms.com. There was a story about a pizza shop in Levittown, Pennsylvania. There was one customer left at the end of the day, and that customer's number got called.
I got nervous. Everything was crazy for a minute. Everything happened so fast in less than 3 minutes.
Alex Lara would rather be talking about his 2-month-old baby girl and his family back home. But instead, he's reliving the fearful minutes when 2 gunmen burst in, demanding money.
They screaming and started asking me for my stuff. Opened the register and I said, I can open it because the manager is not here. Thank you.
That manager? Lara's brother-in-law. He walked in just after the shots were fired inside his Levittown pizza shop. It was after 10 and the store just closed, and only one customer remained inside.
He just pretty much save us, because if he wasn't here, those guys, I don't know, they were coming with different intentions.
The customer doesn't want to be identified. He was carrying a gun, and police say the weapons the 2 bad guys had looked real. This is them on the left. They're airsoft guns. On the right, the loaded weapon the customer had when the thieves started beating him. Police say he used it to defend himself and the pizza shop employees. The district attorney says the shooting was justified, but has a warning for everyone tonight.
Was the shooter a hero? He was to the pizza man. Please, if you carry a gun, have a valid permit. And as for the robbers, the lesson is, if you commit a robbery, sometimes the payoff is death.
Sean Rose of Bucks County died inside the store. His brother Justin is listed in grave condition. The employees are grateful to police and customers, especially the one who was here last night.
To me, he came part of the family now.
He's a hero.
Pretty much, yeah, he's a hero.
Okay, so I think this is a pretty fascinating anecdote. There's a lot to learn here, so let's see if we can kind of pick it apart a little bit. The first thing I would say is be careful about rushing to establishments at closing time, especially, banks, restaurants, anything that's quick in and out, like a convenience store or something like that. Be careful about going right at closing time because that's kind of an ideal time for a robber to strike. So avoid that if you can. The other thing is don't let your permit expire. Now, to be clear, there's some mixed reporting about the CCW guy in this story. I read in one news clip that his permit had expired, which caused a little bit of a legal wrinkle for him, very temporarily, but just enough to bump the blood pressure up for a while. But then I saw another story that said he had a permit, which is a bit more ambiguous. So I don't know if they were just dancing around the fact that his permit was expired or whatnot. But when I heard that on the first story, I was like, oh gosh. So please, 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 especially if you're new to this, it can be really easy to accidentally let that expiration date sneak up on you. So be proactive in that. And if your state is one that has a lifetime permit option, try and take advantage of that if you can afford it, and if it's feasible for you. Tennessee just adopted a lifetime permit option, and I am looking, as soon as I come up for renewal again, I'm definitely going to go the lifetime option, just so I don't have to worry about renewing anymore. Also, some states have what I call loophole laws, which is probably not the best way to phrase it, but in Tennessee, and forgive me, I don't remember the exact language, but there is a law that says you have to have a permit. And then there's another law that says, however, if you're in a bona fide shoot and you don't have a permit, then we're willing to kind of look it over. Obviously, I'm paraphrasing, but my point is know if you have a law like that in your state. And just to be clear, I am not advocating, and I would never advocate, and quite the contrary, I strongly, vehemently discourage carrying outside of the law, right? Whatever the laws are in your state, however annoying or cumbersome or burdensome they may be, go out of your way to follow them. Otherwise, we lose the right to call ourselves law-abiding gun owners, right? Please don't get lax about how you carry, even if your state does have one of these quote-unquote loophole laws. But okay, so one other thing about this pizza shop man who saved the day, if you will. One of the interesting things about this story is that the robbers had fake guns, or they had airsoft guns is how it was described in one of the news stories. And this is a question that I get a lot of times from students. When we're talking about legal issues in force, they always say something like, oh, well, that gun wasn't loaded, so there was no threat. Or it was just a toy, so there was no threat. This was a huge issue in the Tamir Rice case, which I find to be just a tragic case that, you know, I will refrain from delving into that one right now because that'll make this segment way too long. But I have strong opinions on that case, suffice it to say. But getting back to the topic, remember that lethal force is justified if you are in reasonable fear of imminent death or serious bodily harm. Okay, reasonable fear. In other words, if you later learn that the gun with which you were threatened is a fake gun or is an inoperable gun or could never have actually fired a live round, that's neither here nor there. I hate when governments impose, good behavior or whatever on citizenry by overbearing statutes. So I'm not a big fan of these statutes banning toy guns and replica guns and all that stuff. However, as individuals, as responsible people who care about our loved ones, we should be really, really vigilant about toy guns, right? I'm not a big fan of kids playing with toy guns, especially if they look realistic, right? There's how many times do we hear these stories of, oh, my 12-year-old was playing outside with his little BB gun and, had to run in with the police and bad things happen. Of course, everybody has a right to play with toys, and that's great. But the responsible way to do something like that is, A, teach your kids, if you're going to allow your kids to play with quote unquote toy guns or whatever. I tell my nephews to follow the 4 safety rules even when they have toy guns. Right. Like I said, I'm not a fan. I wouldn't prefer it at all. But my nephews do play with toy guns sometimes. Little, they shoot little like those little things with suction cups on them and all that kind of anything that emits a projectile, even if it's brightly colored in neon pink or whatever. It's still a gun, and I'm doing my air quotes now. So I tell kids to observe the 4 safety rules, even if it's not a real gun, because nothing makes me shudder more than seeing my nephews, or seeing any kid really, take a toy gun and point it at somebody's face. It just makes my flesh crawl when I see that. Don't do that. But okay, getting back to the story. Toy guns that look real, hey. If the threatened victim gets a reasonable impression that his or her life is in imminent danger, then self-defense is totally justified. So the fact that the gun happened to be inoperable is irrelevant. You're not going to, if someone sticks a gun in your face, you're not going to say, hey, before I decide whether or not I'm going to defend myself, you mind if I inquire as to the operability of your firearm? Who does that? If an assailant wants to convince you that they're willing to kill you, you have every right to believe them. Okay? Like you have no obligation to assume they're just kidding. That's not how this works. All right. So I'm glad that the authorities were not distracted in this case by the fact that these guns used to rob this store happened to be airsoft guns. So kudos there. There's one other thing that I think we can take from this story. Notice that the CCW guy, the news didn't name him. They said he preferred to remain anonymous. I was happy to hear that. If you're involved in a CCW event, obviously it's your right to go on the news and blab about it if you want. I don't think it's a good idea. I like the idea of the responsible, law-abiding, gun-owning community being humble about the fact that they are armed, and even more humbled about the absolutely regrettable eventuality that you may have to use that firearm in self-defense. I think it reflects poorly on our entire community when members of our community appear to sort of revel in the opportunity to use their firearm. It should be the last thing you want to do. You should orient your entire decision tree around avoiding having to use your firearm at all. So in that vein, I encourage people to be really conscientious about your public footprint. Be extra careful about how you present yourself. Try and keep a low profile about the fact that you are a gun person. I've had super enthusiastic gunny people say things to me like, oh, there's nothing to be ashamed of. I ain't ashamed, blah, 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 blah. I'm not in the closet. It's not about being in the closet. It's about humility, right? I'm not saying that you should lie if someone asks you if you carry a gun, but what I'm saying is you shouldn't be the type that fits the stereotype. Hey, watch what I do, hold my beer, or, all over Facebook with your guns and blah, 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 blah. Exercise some humility. Be a quiet, humble hero, a reluctant hero, right? I think it's a better public perception for us, and it helps to fight the misperception that is held by a lot of folks in the anti-gun community that, oh, gun people are all violent, they like violence, they crave violence. I had somebody say to me one time, well, I don't have a fondness for guns like you do. It's not that I have a fondness for guns. I mean, this person kind of made it sound like it was some sort of fetish. And I just think we need to be extra careful about dispelling that perception of our community. I've been to gun classes where I hear folks who are really good shots and who are really well educated in the nuances of self-defense, and they say stuff like, oh, I could shoot him in the face. I think you should shoot him in the face. If somebody comes up to you and blah, 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 well, you just shoot him in the face. Now, I get the fact that among friends, among colleagues, among peers, that's kind of code language, and it's a figure of speech. But if you're in a public sphere and you have no idea who's listening to you and you say something like, oh, I want to shoot him in the face, it has a totally different connotation, right? A totally different connotation. You sound like a violence-crazed lunatic. So just, first of all, shooting somebody in the face is not always tactically sound, all right? So if that's your buzzword and you run around saying, shoot him in the face, then that's kind of lame. But even if you don't mean it literally and it's just a nicely packaged, jokey, inside joke kind of figure of speech, again, just limit that to when you're around a bunch of people that you know to be kindred spirits. Don't throw around phrases like that while you're out with folks whose opinion on guns you may not know. And then there's things like email addresses and, online profiles and stuff like that. I have a friend and his email address is something like, killerjoe@yahoo.com. Seriously, dude? The word killer is actually in your email address. Oh, could you tell the jury what your email address is? No further questions, Your Honor. I mean, come on, let's think about stuff like that. Your profile handle is, Rifleman on the spot or some, a quick draw McGraw. I mean, it's fun and it's harmless when we're amongst peers, but just be mindful of the fact that all of that is fair game in a court of law in case you ever get hemmed up, God forbid. Here's another precious gem for a cross-examining prosecutor. If you're that guy who rolls up to the spot with this blasting in your car,
let it gun sound, let it gun sound. Let it gun sound, let it gun sound. Let it gun sound, let it gun
maybe not not the greatest idea, not the most helpful persona to give off. And I'm going to be honest, I kind of like the beat of that song, but if I'm in public or whatever, if I'm going to work or something like that, I'm not going to be blasting it. If I have to play that song in my car, I'll turn it down so that it's not giving everyone the impression that I let him gun sounds, let him gun sounds, okay? Instead, you want to project the exact opposite impression, that you don't love gun sounds, and you will only resort to that if another person leaves you absolutely no alternative. You don't want to appear anxious to get into a gunfight. One last thing I want to say about this incident in the pizza shop. Remember that the guy who ended up pulling his firearm, there was a mention in the story about him first being beaten by the robbers. They pistol whipped him. Now, keep in mind options like ruse, delay, distraction, that sort of thing. In other words, you want to be a thinking person with a tool. You don't want to be a handgunner who tries to remember to think when the shit hits the fan, right? When a problem presents itself, you don't necessarily immediately go to guns, right? Not always, not unless the situation calls for that tactically. Here's a situation where, and again, I'm speculating, I have no idea what actually happened, but the moment someone presents a gun or presents a mortal threat in your presence, that might not be the opportune time for you to immediately, instinctively sort of pull your gun as a kind of knee-jerk reaction. You want to wait, you want to think, you want to assess, you want to be tactically sound in your decision making, and that may require ruse, right? I can't tell you how many times I've been in force-on-force training and people, first of all, everybody games force-on-force training, right? They're all gaming it. They come into the scenario and they're looking around, waiting on somebody to rappel out of the rafters or whatever. And as soon as the problem presents itself, they immediately go to holster and go to guns, right? That might be smart sometimes, but other times it might be smarter to feign compliance for a moment or to even wait for several minutes. I remember watching one video from USCCA where a person came in and robbed a barber shop, and the gentleman who was armed was sitting in the barber's chair, and he didn't immediately go to guns. He waited until the robber walked past him and was not looking at him, was facing the other way, and then he produced his firearm. Tactically smart, right? Minimizes the chances that you will take incoming return fire. I hate to hear that in this pizza shop story that the CCW guy ended up taking a few blows from the robbers' toy guns. I hate to hear that, but it's just another example of how you're always in the fight. You got to stay in the fight. And even if you take a blow or things start out seemingly disadvantageous to you, the tables can turn really quickly. And what it sounds like happened in this situation is the customer got the short end of the stick at the beginning of the encounter, but then at some point an opportunity presented itself where he was able to produce his firearm in a way that had a high probability of yielding positive results from his perspective. The robbers probably diverted their attention somewhere else momentarily, and that was the moment of truth, if you will. So kudos to this CCW guy. Thanks for staying a gray man and not celebrating this whole incident. Thanks for being humble about it. I'm glad that everything worked out in your favor. I'm glad that you are safe. I hope that you weren't severely injured in this incident, and I hope that you'll renew your firearms carry permit. All right, guys. So with that in mind, have a safe week. Have a wonderful week. Put a smile on your face. Go watch a good movie. I hope you all had a great Thanksgiving holiday. I hope you got to spend a lot of time with your family and friends and had a great meal eating lots of yummy, scrumptious, fattening foods. Keep it centered and even. I'll talk to you guys next time.
You can follow Tiffany at frontsightpress.com.
And now it's time for Blue Collar Prepping with that bratty kid sister of the gun blogosphere, Erin Paulette.
Come on, every pony. It's time for Blue Collar Prepping with Erin Paulette.
So I've been asked by Sean to keep this short, and so in the spirit of post-Thanksgiving food hangovers, I'm going to mention some medications that every prepper needs in their first aid kits. Over-the-counter solutions for digestive maladies. For your typical indigestion, heartburn, and general I feel yucky in my tummy, you're going to want an antacid like Pepto-Bismol. If you still feel bloated, you want an anti-gas medication like Gas-X. Now, if you've eaten so much turkey that you're having painful carnivore poops, you're going to need a stool softener like X-Lax or Miralax. And by the way, if nothing is moving down there, a great cure for constipation is magnesium citrate. It comes in a bottle, so it's not easily carried in a bag, but just keep it in your medicine closet at home. It works really, really well. Just trust me on this. And finally, if things are moving too quickly and you have diarrhea, which can be life-threatening in a disaster situation because it dehydrates you quickly, have with you an anti-diarrheal like Imodium. So take those four, Pepto, Gas-X, X-Lax, and Imodium, and put them in your first aid kit alongside activated carbon, which I talked about in episode 55, and your painkiller of choice. And you ought to be set to fix any gastrointestinal distress.
Not only can you subscribe or donate to the podcast, you can also make a contribution to the LGBT Training Ammo Fund. Go to gunblogvarietycast.com and click on the LGBT Training Ammo Fund donation button in the right sidebar. I'll use this money to pay for range fees, targets, and yes, ammo for the people I teach. And thanks for your support. The Soul Anti-Gun Podcast has released another episode, but this one is a little different. Find out how with another patented weird audio fisk in This Week in Anti-Gun Nuttery. So hey, Weird, what do you got for me this week?
Hey, Sean, there's a new episode of Loaded Conversations up. Well, kinda. Rebecca has set a new record. This time she released a podcast that was 2 minutes and 20 seconds long. Not bad for 2.5 months' work. Again, Sean hosts and produces this hour-long podcast every week, and I record 2 other shows every week that run approximately an hour each. Where has she been?
Hi, listeners. It's Rebecca Flowers with Loaded Conversations. Have you been wondering where we are? I know I have.
Okay, well, I guess it's a mystery to all of us. See you next week, Sean.
All right, Weird. Talk to you next week.
Just kidding.
Here's what happened. After spending the better part of the year talking to people about how violence has affected their families, I started to feel like just producing this podcast wasn't enough.
Really? First, you've only actually been doing the show for just under 11 months, and you've just barely cracked 1 hour of content. Your Facebook and Twitter pages that support the show are all but abandoned, and iTunes notes that the only people actually listening to your show are Second Amendment activists.
I decided to do something I've dreamed of for a long time now, and get a degree in counseling.
Well, good luck with that. But wait, aren't you the lady who said these things on your show?
I remember driving home thinking about one of my students, a quiet kid who seemed personally affronted by my request that he remove his earbuds while I was talking. I have to admit, I wondered if he owned or had access to a gun. I knew most of them did, and if he would maybe bring that gun to school, point it at my head, and say, "You can take these earbuds from my cold, dead hands," or something like that. Images in the back of my mind that only the next day could I see clearly. Me, having accidentally shot one of my kids, standing over that bloody little body and screaming. The guy next to me, freaking out suddenly and turning his gun on my husband, who was holding the recorder, and then on me. To be fair, no one paid us the least bit of attention. They all seemed focused on improving their shooting.
I don't know if somebody with such bizarre and violent fantasies would give me great comfort. But I guess it's common because Maria Bamford wrote a whole bit on it.
Have you ever not wanted to go to SeaWorld? Because if you were left alone with a tide pool, where you'd take a baby starfish and start kissing its poop hole. God, that sounds familiar. I don't know, it's sort of some deja vu thing, but I don't... Wow. Okay, have you ever not wanted to spend time with friends because you were concerned that you would chop them up into chunks and bits and then have sex with those chunks and bits and then put those chunks and bits on a Cobb salad, toss it, and feed it to your parents? Yes, about 1,000,000 times. God, aren't you even listening?
So does this mean she's hanging it up?
Episodes will be shorter. They'll be minimally edited and produced.
Well, good on stepping back on the production. A lot of the music and sound effects are annoying. But shorter? Does that mean that this episode might not be the shortest on record?
We're still dedicated to navigating the gun violence stew with you guys. In fact, it'll be more important now than ever before. With President-elect... No, I still can't say it, but you know what I mean. The president who will take over in January is firmly in the pocket of the NRA.
Man, I remember when George W. Bush took office, and the news kept referring to him as Mr. Bush. I'd never heard a president addressed as Mr. except as Mr. President. All my life it was President Reagan, President Bush, President Clinton, then Mr. Bush? So rude. I really didn't care for the 8 years under President Obama, but he was fairly elected twice. And while I don't like his politics, that earns him a lot of respect from the American people. And even if I didn't vote for him, he is my president.
We're going to focus on subversive acts because there's some pretty cool stuff happening out there.
Subversive?
These pro-gun extremists were absolutely incensed that a bunch of women had the nerve to sit in the hearing room and knit. So some of us said, okay, more of us bring knitting, because for some reason it really gets under their skin.
Subversive knitting? Hopefully that's a topic for a later show, because I'm dying to hear more about that. And certainly Google has never heard of these important activists.
Witnesses told building owner Mel Williams they saw two women tearing up signs like these and defacing the wall and sidewalk, writing "murder lobby" in sidewalk chalk.
Ah, vandalism and sidewalk chalk. It's a wonder us pro-gun people are still around with that juggernaut bearing down on us.
So thanks for sticking with me. We'll have the new episode out really soon, I promise.
Soon? As in 1 month or 2? If she starts posting once a week, I might have a heart attack.
Thanks to Kevin Aviance with Gays Against Guns for letting us use their song Puppets of the NRA.
Maybe Erin should shoot him an email and let him know about Operation Blazing Sword. Maybe not. Well, good luck, Rebecca, and I hope you make good on your promise to produce more shows. There's a lot of Second Amendment activists looking forward to it.
All right, Weird. It was good to talk with you. I'll see you again next week.
See you next week, Sean.
In addition to appearing here, Weird is a regular host on The Squirrel Report and blogs at weirdworld.com. That's WEERD world.com.
Plug of the week. So, Erin, I think you have a plug of the week this week for something that you sent me in the direction of because of a Dungeons & Dragons game that we're about to start. Well, actually, it's a Traveler game, really, but sort of Dungeons & Dragons.
Pathfinder. Pathfinder, darling, not Traveler. Traveler is science fiction.
Whatevs. It's all the same, right? My wife's about to hit me. Pathfinder, Traveler, Dungeons & Dragons, some dice and pencil paper thing, role-playing, and it's sword and sorcery. People whacking each other with sticks, swords or something.
Yeah, see, you're trying to act all diffident, but, I have pictures of you in your SCA armor, so I know you're secretly loving this.
I can never keep the different versions of it straight. I've played Savage Worlds. It's actually the rule set that I like best. But, and I've played Dungeons & Dragons, obviously. But, the different versions of, the rule sets, 3, 3, 5, 4, 5, whatever this one is, I can't keep them straight.
Turn in your nerd card.
Sorry.
All right, so Hero Lab is a utility that you buy, and you have to download it and run it on your computer. And it automates a lot of the dreary reference work involved in making a character. Now, because Sean and I and others are getting ready for a Pathfinder game, we downloaded that version, but Hero Lab comes in many different flavors, including 5th edition D&D, Shadowrun, with the most recent one and the one after that, which I think are 3rd and 4th edition. I believe there's some Savage Worlds in there.
Oh, yeah, I know there's Savage Worlds. I saw that. But you try to build a character, and there's like 40 bazillion rules, and you can have 2 of these and 1 of those, and if you carry this, you can't have 1 of those, and if you do this kind of character, they can do this, and they can have that kind of animal, but they can't have that, and if you have this race, they do that, and something else, and it just gets confusing.
It does.
Well, what if you had a computer program that just said, well, I'll just automate that crap for you?
Yeah, exactly.
Would that be awesome?
And so instead of having to page through umpty-billion splat books looking for that feat you want or the background or whatever it's called in your game system of choice, Hero Lab has it all, and it's got summaries of it for you, so you can build your character without having to thumb through all your different books. And it makes your character all nice and neat and organized, and it keeps track of your wounds, whether your character is fatigued, unconscious, that sort of thing. It takes a lot of the drudgery out of both making the character, and then it makes it really easy to play during combat. And so that's great. And the best part is that the base unit for Pathfinder, I can't say that for all the systems, but a lot of them are on sale, and the Pathfinder one is half price for their 2016 Christmas sale. It normally goes for $30. They've got it on sale for $15. The drawback to Hero Lab is that if you want to use an expansion book, let's say, you bought Pathfinder and then you want to use something from the Advanced Player's Guide, you have to buy the Advanced Player's Guide expansion pack for Hero Lab. So it does cost you to have all the options, but once you do, you've got them all right there. And it's a bit of an initial outlay if you're getting it all at once. Me, I'm a big nerd, so I parceled it out over months and years, and so I have all the stuff. But I think it's really cool, and I didn't have to do much convincing to talk the GM and the other players into getting it. We've got one or two holdouts. I think Sarah is resolutely doing it old school with paper and dice. But most of us have bought Hero Lab, and we're having a blast using it and making our incredibly complex characters, which we're then going to play with in various, dungeons and then going on quests and fighting monsters. And I've got a +9 knife of ogre slaying. I attack the darkness.
The thing about it is nobody had to take a hit on their inhaler and go, well, actually, you can't do that, because the computer just figured it all out for me.
Mm-hmm.
That was very helpful, because oh my goodness, character generation is such a pain in the butt. Like, you spend 3 hours dealing with that crap, and then you get to have a little fun? Like, seriously?
Oh, I think making characters is fun, so I don't know where you're coming from, man.
Oh, no fun.
I can show you my folio of PCs.
Not fun at all. I want to get to the action. Half the time, I'd probably be happier if you just handed me a pre-gen character and said, here, play this. Or, give me a couple of choices on character and say, here, play that. Something like that would be happier. But if you're going to play, this is probably the way to go. For $15, and in my case, I wanted to do something a little bit different, so I paid an extra $10 to get a expansion pack. What was the Advanced Player's Guide or something like that, so that I could play a slightly different style of character. And then really, everything was just check that box, buy this with the GP that I had, and boom, it was done. It was really, really simple. Now, you talked me through some of the fine points of it, but it really, if I had to make another character, I don't think I'd need any help. It was just check boxes and click here and click there, and boom, it was done. So try that with pen, paper, and a couple of rule books. You'll tear your hair out.
Yeah, take that, Luddite.
So for $15, I don't know what's going to cost you if you use Dungeons and Dragons at 5 or whatever the other ones are, but for the one we're doing is $15. So you may as well spend the money. Save yourself a lot of hassle.
I would expect that for Cyber Monday, there are going to be sales.
What is it with the Cyber Monday thing? Does anybody wait until they go to work on Monday to shop on the internet? They're not even waiting until the turkey's served to be doing their Christmas shopping.
I'm not really, I don't really wait, but I kind of lurk looking for the various deals and go, ooh, yes, I'll get that now. Thank you.
Well, that's our show for the week. Remember that the GunBlog VarietyCast is a member of the Self-Defense Radio Network.
Find the show notes at gunblogvarietycast.com/episode 119.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the GunBlog VarietyCast. Music courtesy of Rob Allen at blog.roballen.com. You can subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, and Google Play Music. This podcast is made possible by the Firearms Policy Coalition and by contributions from listeners like you. This is a URS production.